What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 5 routes that all wide receivers need to learn. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you would like to train with us this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below. We are going to be coming out to 15 more states across the country for two-day long QB and wide receiver camps. Next up on our camp tour, we'll be coming out to San Francisco. That camp is over 50% full, so we are almost sold out. Then we'll be coming out to Miami, Las Vegas, Charlotte, Portland, Dallas, Nashville, Chicago, Buffalo, Atlanta, Houston, Philly, Detroit, Boise, and Los Angeles. So if you guys would like some more information, again, check out that very first link in the description below, fellas. We'd love to have you out there. Let's get started with this video. So now, first route we're going to be discussing from Adam Thielen is something called a blaze out route, or some of you might know this as a slant out route, but this is not a whip route, and we're going to explain to you why it's not a whip route. So let's play this thing full speed, then we'll break it down. So it gives a move, breaks to the slant, whips this thing back to the outside, but it's not considered a whip route because he turns his back. A lot of times when we talk about the slant out or we talk about a blaze out route, a blaze out route just essentially means that you're breaking down at the cut. Usually it's 3 steps. Adam Thielen's able to get out of this in 2 steps. Usually it's 3. And we're going to talk about how he's able to get out in 2. But when you turn your back to the quarterback, that is no longer a whip route. On a whip route, you keep your hips and shoulders facing the quarterback the entire time. Now, obviously, what this route is trying to do is it's trying to set up like a slant. We're trying to make this DB crash on the slant, whether it's a 1-step slant. Sometimes people run this off of a 3-step slant, whatever it is. But it remains the same as how we sell this route. So when you break to the inside on this slant out, you have to make sure that we are selling it with 3 specific things. Number 1, we got to make sure that we are running hard. If you guys are not running fast and you guys are slowing down, trying to prepare for the break point, that DB's not going to crash. He's not going to believe that you're actually running that slant route. So we got to make sure that we're running fast. Now, and that's pretty much a given, right? Like, we want to run all of our routes fast. We want to be under control, but we want to be fast. Now, also, I want you to see how much ground he gains while he is running the slant. You see how his strides are in full stride. A lot of times what wide receivers do is they get way too choppy, especially wide receivers who are very quick. A lot of wide receivers are quick, they're twitchy, but they don't necessarily have the best change of direction while they're running full speed. And when you guys are taking choppy steps, no DB believes we're running a slant, a drag, anything crossing his face with half strides. We want full strides. I want to be driving my knees up and I want to be running. And then last but not least, it's a body language thing. Guys, when a DB is guarding us man-to-man especially, he is reading my body language. This DB might have his eyes a little bit high, it seems, like looking at Thielen's eyes and his shoulders. If he were to be watching our hips, we have to make sure that when we break to any double move, your hips, your shoulders, and your eyes are all selling to the inside to get this guy to crash. So it's about speed, stride, and body language. So now when I have all of that, when I get into the blaze out, usually what happens is usually like a 3-step break, right? So you would cut off of the outside foot. That would be considered your first step. That's your second step. That's your third. And you would break right on that 3rd step. So you would snap down. You would take your second step and you'd pivot. Then you take your right foot again and you hook it back around and drive out. That 3-step break would be considered like the blaze out. It's when you take 3 steps on an out route. Now, Thielen takes it 1 step further. Instead of taking 3 steps, he goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Drops right on the 4th step of this like slant, drag, however you want to think of it. So on that 4th step, that is when we have to make sure that my hips are violent. It's not me slow down, then I drop on the 4th step. The 4th step has to be what slows me down. And honestly, guys, this is the same thing for a whip route too. On a whip route, you would probably break, pivot with this foot, hook around. So a whip route, a slant out, a blaze out, all of these things, the same mechanics apply, right? The routes may differ, fellas, but the breaks will always stay the same and the mechanics will always stay the same. Now, you want to be violent because that's how you guys can slow down while taking care of that selling portion of this route. Running full speed, running full stride. If you have a slow drop of your hips and it's very, very slow, like a sink of your hips, not a drop of your hips, it's hard to slow down. We take a lot of steps. But Thielen, obviously, is very talented. He's violent with his hips. I tell my wide receivers, think of it like you have a string attached to your chin and we are pulling the string straight down to my knee. So he's violent. He hooks the outside foot around and he just drives off of that step, able to get out of this thing, accelerate out, and get to that ball. So again, blaze out, slant out. It could be ran off of the outside foot. We obviously want to shoot for 2 steps, or it could be ran off the inside foot where we snap, pivot, hook, and get out in 3. Either one is fine. It kind of depends on the offense that you're in. But first route that we need to know today is going to be this slant out route. So now, second route is going to be something called a peek back comeback route. So this is something that I like to use. Honestly, like personally, I recommend using this in the goal line, like a goal line situation or like red zone situation. You could use it in the middle of the field, obviously, but it's going to be a little bit different, and we'll explain why. So what a peek back move is that when you're just looking over your inside shoulder to try to sell to this DB that you're running a fade, right? So like there are a couple different ways that you could sell a fade route. You could sell a fade route by obviously running hard, running in full stride, and having good body language. And what is that a lot like? That's a lot like that slant out that we did when we're trying to sell the slant. Being a salesman on any route. Every time you run a route, we're trying to sell something. We're either trying to sell fade or we're trying to sell the first part of a double move. And it's all those 3 things: speed, stride, body language. So the peek back move is just something that adds on extra to that body language sell, right? Because a DB at the end of the day is not supposed to be looking at our eyes. He's supposed to be watching our hips, but he's going to notice it if we start to look back for the ball. He's automatically thinking, oh, that's a goal line fade. I'm going to play this fade. I got to try to get over the top, and then we could slip this thing right off. So you see how this receiver, when he does this, DB's inside shade, he attacks him, pushes up vertical. We got to make it look exactly like a fade route at this point. So on a goal line fade route, normally you look back for the ball a little bit sooner. Like if we're at the 50-yard line in the middle of the field and we're running a deep fade, you'd keep your head down, quarterback's putting it out there, you would look a little bit later, right? But on a quick goal line comeback, a goal line out route, a corner route, whatever it is, you would look sooner, right? You'd look sooner in the break, especially if it's inside shade press. You'd look right away to try to find that ball because it's probably going to be a jump ball. So he attacks him. It looks exactly like a fade, and you see how he gives this little glance. Now, DB has very poor eyes right here. If you're a DB listening to this, trying to get the receiver perspective of things, you always want to be watching the hips. We never want high eyes because as a receiver, shoulders and head will always lie. Hips, we have a better gauge, but we teach a lot of our wide receivers to sell routes with their hips. But you should never have your eyes up here because this is easy for a wide receiver because all we got to do is something like this. So he looks up at our eyes, we peek back, he thinks fade, and then bam, we snap this thing right off. Same idea. We want violent hips. We want to drive out of the break and win that race to that bottom pylon. So a peek back comeback is something very, very easy that you guys can do. Now, when we peek back, fellas, we got to make sure a couple things. Number one, it's a glance. We are not looking and turning my entire body and raising my pad level up. Because a lot of guys will peek back and then they will start to lean back. And when you start to lean back, your feet get way out in front of you. You start to raise up your chest. If a disciplined DB is watching your hips, he's expecting a break. So guys, it is literally just a slight glance over your inside shoulder. You got to maintain good body language while you peek back. And then last but not least, you got to hold your eyes there for a second. A lot of wide receivers, they'll peek back like this for just like a step and then they break. That's not enough to draw a DB in. Guys, you have to hold your eyes for like 2 to 3 steps. See how he peeks back 1, 2, 3, then he breaks. You have to hold your eyes because that's what will sell this thing more. Those are 2 easy mistakes that receivers will make on that peek back comeback. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. This is a great move that you guys can add to a comeback, an out route, even a corner route at the top of the break. Okay, so now, next example here is going to be for wide receivers who are on, like, the bigger, stronger side of things. So this is a clip from, like, University of Colorado, like, spring ball one-on-ones, and this is a shock release slant route. So if you are a bigger guy, you see right here, this dude is a lot bigger than the DB, probably a lot stronger than this DB. This is when I would use it. If you are a smaller guy, like, you know, like maybe one of these wide receivers over here that's not the bigger side of things, you're going up against a DB who's decently strong, maybe he looks strong, maybe he's bigger than us, probably wouldn't go with this move. But a shock release, a lot of people say that this is a flag. It's not a flag. It's part of the release. A DB can get hands on us and jam us within 5 yards, and we could get hands on him and hand fight with him within 5 yards. So as long as you do this within 5 yards, not at the top of the route like 10 yards, you're going to be fine. So let's watch what he does here. So we come off the ball, just gives him a quick little, pretty much a block, if you will, and then is able to win on that slant. So like this move right here, it's the same mechanics as like stock blocking for a receiver, right? So when you stock block as a receiver, what's the first most important thing? Other than like your feet being active, feet being wide, mechanics of a block is you got to get low, right? So on a shock release, you got to get low. You have to make sure that we are low. We have to keep my feet driving. Once we get hands on him, we have to drive from my legs and drive from my hips. And we want to try to literally shock him. This is something that you could use early on in a game to kind of set the tone. Even when you're not getting a ball, you could be a backside drag route, backside slant. You know you're not getting the ball. Maybe the quarterback is throwing it to the left, but we want to set the tone early with this DB to maybe make him think twice about coming down and pressing. Now he's starting to play catch technique, and we could eat up that cushion. So that shock release, guys, shock release in, slant, drag, great move or a great route that all wide receivers should be able to learn and add to their tool belt. Okay, so now, next thing that we're going to be talking about here is something called a diamond release slant. So diamond release slant is something that I think every wide receiver needs to have in their tool belt because you are faced with this situation a lot. You have to run a slant route and you have an inside shade press coverage DB. So when a DB's lined up inside shade and in press, what's his goal being inside shade? This is how we got to think when we come up to the line. And we got to think about this stuff fast. It should be a habit. When he's inside shade, his goal is to prevent the inside route. So he doesn't want us to run a slant, doesn't want us to run a dig or a post, force everything to the sideline. That's why he's lined up inside shade, aka inside leverage, right? Inside leverage is when he is shaded to the inside of us. So if we have to run a slant, my game plan can't be, okay, I'm going to go attack him and then cut in front of his face. Because the second you start to go inside, he's going to take something called like a leverage step, where he steps and he protects and holds the inside. He does not have help to the inside, so he's not going to let you do that. So what you would want to do is something called a diamond release, because it's fast, you can maintain timing, and guys, when you force the inside release, he is going to get hands, and hands on a wide receiver, from a DB's perspective, is disrupting timing with the quarterback. We want to maintain spacing and timing. If you force this release inside and he gets hands and you run your slant and you're like right up by the offensive lineman or right by another slot receiver, terrible spacing. That's not going to fly in a real game. And one-on-ones it might fly, but you could catch the ball on the opposite hash in one-on-ones. In a real game, you cannot. Spacing matters and timing matters, and that's why this diamond release is so great. So what you would do is you're going to attack his outside shoulder and outside hip for 3 hard steps. So let's watch what Gallup does here. So he comes on the ball, 1, 2, 3. Breaks this thing off, and you see the amount of separation he's able to get, and he's able to get a reception. So on this route, remember, as a receiver, on every route, we are always trying to sell something. So we were trying to sell fade for 3 hard steps. So what do you think we got to do? Think about the very first thing that we talked about. We come off the ball. We got to have speed. We got to make sure that we have long strides. We got to gain ground, and your hips, your shoulders, and your eyes, everything about above your waist needs to sell like it's a fade, because the goal is to get this DB to open up the gate, essentially open up his hips so we put the brakes on, and then we can slip back underneath him. Now, everybody's always hesitant about this release. Well, what if this DB doesn't open up? Guys, you got to make him open up. Your release should be, I'm going as hard as I can, and he needs to open up. He must open up, because that's how fast I'm going to go. So let's play this again, full speed. Great release here by Gallup, getting that DB to flip and winning on that slant. Okay, so next route I want to talk about is something called a dig and go. Now, I posted this the other day, and a lot of people thought, oh, that's not a dig and go. This is a sluggo. This is a slant and go. I want you to pay attention to the angle of his break, and this is why it's a dig and go. So let's play this full speed. So he comes up here. See how he goes flat for 3 steps. DB crashes. We slip over the top. It's easy touchdown, wide open on this. So this is very, very similar to that like slant out that I wanted to tell you guys about. Just because it's like the same principles apply, right? On a double move that builds off of a slant, that builds off of an in, builds off of a drag. We obviously got to, on every route, we're trying to sell something. So in this case, we're trying to sell like a 5-yard in or a 5-yard dig. So we got to make sure that we're going fast, we're running in full stride, and your hips and your shoulders, aka your body language, all commit to the dig. Name of the game, right? So when he breaks, you see how he breaks, but watch his first step. You see how it pivots. On a slant route, guys, the angle is at a 45 degree. It is not at a 90 degree. So you guys have to be able to work both of these. You got to work a sluggo, but you also got to work a dig and go. It's a different angle at the break point. You guys want to be comfortable with each angle. That's why I think wide receivers need to learn this route. So you see when he breaks, his next step, it opens up completely. His belly button gets down a 90 degree. That's the first step of the break, right? Second step, third step, breaks on. DB's crashing down because why? We had speed out of the break. We had long strides, and look at his eyes, shoulders, and hips. Everything sells it, and then bang. Got plenty of separation on that dig and go. So just fellas, just make sure we work different variations of it, right? You want to work out and ups. You want to work sluggos. You want to work dig and goes. You want to work whips. You want to work slant outs. All those things build. The breaks will stay the same. The principles stay the same. The routes just differ. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job selling this in, getting the DB to crash, and then easy win over the top on that route. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate feedback. Always great to hear from you guys. And then again, fellas, if you would like to come out and work with us in 15 different states this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below. Again, 2-day long camps coming all the way from Las Vegas to Philadelphia, all over the country. So again, very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.